It was supposed to be an ordinary Thursday night at NBC Studios in Burbank, March 1973. The Tonight Show was running like clockwork. Johnny Carson was backstage, reviewing his cue cards. Ed McMahon was warming up the audience. Doc Severson's band was tuning their instruments. Everything was normal until it wasn't. A man walked through the studio doors without an appointment. No publicist, no entourage, just a simple black jacket and a quiet intensity that made the security guards stop mid-sentence. They recognized him immediately. The whole world knew that face. Bruce Lee, the man from the Green Hornet, the martial artist everyone was talking about. The actor who had just finished filming what people said would be the biggest action movie Hollywood had ever seen. But something was wrong. His hands were trembling slightly. His jaw was tight. And in his jacket pocket, he carried a folded piece of paper that looked like it had been opened and closed 1,000 times. He didn't ask for a meeting. He asked for 5 minutes. Ed McMahon was called to the lobby. He listened to what Bruce had to say. Then he walked backstage, leaned into Johnny Carson's ear, and whispered something that made Carson set down his cards. "Bruce Lee is here. He says he has something to tell America. And he says it can't wait." Carson looked at McMahon for a long moment. Then he nodded. What happened next would stay with Johnny Carson for the rest of his life. Because in the next 5 minutes, Bruce Lee wouldn't talk about movies. He wouldn't demonstrate a single kick. He would do something far more dangerous. He would tell the truth. Oh, and before we continue, drop a comment. Where are you watching from tonight? The band played Bruce onto the stage. The audience clapped and cheered. They remembered Kato. They remembered the lightning-fast hands and the confident smile. A few people even stood up. Bruce walked out slowly. He waved. He bowed slightly. But Carson noticed something the cameras might have missed. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Carson shook his hand and gestured toward the guest chair. Bruce sat down, adjusted his jacket, and folded his hands in his lap. "So," Carson began, leaning back with his usual easy charm, "they tell me you've just finished a movie that's going to change everything. Enter the Dragon, right?" Bruce nodded. "The movie will speak for itself, Johnny." Carson raised an eyebrow. That wasn't the answer he expected. Most actors couldn't stop talking about their next project. But Bruce seemed to have something else on his mind. "You know," Carson said, "they call you the kindest man in Hollywood. I've heard stories. Giving up your seat on the subway, sharing your salary with the crew, helping strangers on the street. Is any of that true?" Bruce looked at him. "Kindness costs nothing. Pain taught me that." The audience went quiet. The energy in the room shifted. This wasn't the playful martial artist they had seen on television. This was something else. Carson leaned forward slightly. His eyes moved to Bruce's jacket pocket, where the folded paper was barely visible. He didn't ask about it. Not yet. "You're at the top of your game," Carson said. "Enter the Dragon is about to make you an international star. What could possibly be troubling a man like you?" Bruce didn't answer right away. He looked out at the audience. Then he looked back at Carson. "The top of the mountain is the loneliest place, Johnny." Carson's smile faded. He had interviewed thousands of people on this stage. Politicians, movie stars, athletes. But something in Bruce Lee's voice told him this wasn't going to be like any of those conversations. This was going to be something he would never forget. Carson set his cue cards on the desk. He didn't look at them again. "Bruce," he said quietly, "why are you really here tonight?" Bruce took a breath. His fingers moved toward the paper in his pocket, but he didn't pull it out. "Not yet. I came here because there's something America doesn't know about me," he said. "Something I've never talked about on television." The audience leaned in. The cameras pushed closer. "They told me I was too Chinese to be a hero in my own country." Carson didn't move. "I came to America when I was 18 years old," Bruce continued. "I had $100 in my pocket and a dream. I wanted to show the world what Chinese martial arts could be. I wanted to be seen, not as a sidekick, not as a villain, as a man." He paused. "I created a television show. I called it The Warrior, a martial artist in the Old West. I pitched it to every studio in Hollywood. They loved the idea. They said it was brilliant." His voice dropped. "Then they gave it to a white man. They put him in yellowface and called it Kung Fu. And I watched my own dream succeed without me." Carson shook his head slowly. He had heard rumors about this, but hearing it from Bruce's own mouth was different. "My father was an opera singer," Bruce said. "He wanted me to succeed. He believed in me when no one else did. But he died 1 week after my son Brandon was born. He never saw me make it, Johnny. He never got to see his son become anything more than a sidekick." Bruce's hand finally touched the paper in his pocket. 2 weeks ago, I collapsed in Hong Kong. I was working on the final sounds for Enter the Dragon. My brain was swelling. The doctors don't know why." Carson's face changed. This wasn't acting. This was real. "I felt something wrong inside me for months," Bruce said. "Like time is running out. Like there's a clock somewhere. And I can't see it, but I can hear it." He looked directly at Carson. "I didn't come here to promote a movie, Johnny. I came here because there's something I need America to hear. From me. Not from someone playing me. Not from someone who looks like what they think I should look like." Then Bruce reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded piece of paper. "This is what I came to share. If you've ever been told you weren't good enough, that you didn't belong, type 'I understand' in the comments. You're not alone." Bruce held the paper in both hands. It was worn at the edges. The creases were deep, like it had been folded and unfolded hundreds of times. "I wrote this on the worst night of my life," he said. The audience was completely still. It was after they took Kung Fu from me. After they told me America would never accept a Chinese leading man. I was living in Oakland. My wife Linda was asleep. My son Brandon was in his crib. And I sat alone in the dark, asking myself one question." He paused. "What is the point of fighting if the world refuses to see you?" Carson didn't speak. He didn't even blink. "That night, I almost gave up," Bruce said. "I almost let the silence win. But instead of quitting, I picked up a pen, and I wrote down the only truth I knew." He unfolded the paper slowly. The studio lights caught the ink. Handwritten, slightly faded. Then he read, "Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot." He looked up at the audience. "Water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend." No one moved. "This isn't about fighting," Bruce said. "It's about surviving. It's about living in a world that tries to make you hard when you need to stay soft. A world that wants to put you in a box. A world that tells you what you can and cannot be." His voice cracked just slightly. To every child watching tonight who was told they don't belong, you belong. To every person whose dream was stolen, create a new one. To every soul who feels invisible, I see you because I was you. He folded the paper again and held it out to Carson. Keep this, Johnny. Carson looked at the paper like it was something sacred. He didn't take it right away. Why? He asked. Because one day, people will forget my face, Bruce said. But maybe if you keep this, they'll remember these words. Carson reached out and took the paper. His fingers trembled slightly as he held it. I don't know how much time I have, Bruce said. None of us do. But I know this. I will not leave this world having stayed silent. I will not let them erase me before I've had a chance to speak. He looked directly into the camera. Not at Carson, not at the audience. At the lens. At whoever was watching at home. I came to America as a boy with nothing. They told me I would never be seen. But I see myself. And tonight, I needed you to see me too. Not the fighter. Not the actor. Just the man. The studio was silent. 17 million people were watching. And not one of them reached for the remote. But Bruce Lee wasn't finished. What he said next would make Johnny Carson do something he hadn't done in 11 years of hosting The Tonight Show. Carson looked down at the paper in his hands. Then he did something he almost never did on television. He set aside his cue cards. He pushed them to the edge of the desk. And he spoke without a script. Bruce, he said quietly, I know what it feels like to smile when you're breaking inside. The audience stirred. This wasn't the Johnny Carson they were used to. This was someone else. Someone real. I've been married 3 times, Carson continued. I've got sons I barely know. I make 17 million people laugh every single night. And then I go home to an empty house. Bruce watched him carefully. You talk about being invisible, Carson said. I'm seen by more people than almost anyone in America. And I've never felt more alone. For a moment, neither man spoke. The cameras kept rolling, but it didn't feel like television anymore. It felt like something private, something sacred. Then Bruce leaned forward. That's why you're the right person for this moment, Johnny. Carson looked at him, confused. The broken recognize the broken, Bruce said. You think you're just a comedian? You think you're just here to make people laugh and sell commercials? But you're wrong. He pointed at Carson's chest. Every night you help people forget their pain, even if it's just for an hour, even if they never meet you. You give them something to hold on to. That's not nothing, Johnny. That's everything. Carson's hand moved to his face. He rubbed his eyes quickly, trying to hide what was happening. You carry something sacred, Bruce said. You just forgot what it was. The audience was silent. A few people wiped their eyes. Others just sat, unable to move. Carson finally spoke, his voice rough. Why me, Bruce? Out of everyone in this country, why did you come here tonight? Bruce smiled, a real smile this time. Because you're the only person in America who will let me finish a sentence before trying to sell me something. Carson laughed. It was short and broken, but it was real. And for just a moment, the weight in the room lifted. The teacher appears when the student is ready, Bruce said. Tonight, we're both students, Johnny. We're both learning something. Carson looked at the paper again. The words Bruce had written on his worst night. The philosophy that had kept him alive. And he understood. This wasn't just a gift. It was a responsibility. If someone helped you when you were at your lowest, tag them in the comments. Let them know what they meant to you. Bruce stood up first. He didn't shake Carson's hand. He didn't wave to the audience. He simply stood there, calm and still, like a man who had said everything he needed to say. Carson hesitated. Then he stood too. The two men faced each other, east and west, fighter and comedian. Two strangers who had become something else in the span of 15 minutes. Then Bruce did something unexpected. He bowed. A deep, respectful bow. The kind you give to someone you honor. Carson froze. He had never had a guest bow to him before. He didn't know what to do. And then, without thinking, Carson bowed back. The audience rose to their feet, not clapping, not cheering, just standing, as if they knew they had witnessed something that would never happen again. Ed McMahon stood frozen at the side of the stage. He had been with Carson for over a decade. He had never seen anything like this. Doc Severinson's band sat with their instruments in their laps. No one had cued them. No one needed to. Music would have ruined the moment. Carson looked down at the paper in his hand. Then he looked at Bruce. "What do I do with this?" he asked. Bruce smiled softly. "Live it. And when I'm gone, share it." The word "gone" hung in the air. Carson didn't understand it then. He wouldn't understand it for another 4 months. Bruce reached out and took Carson's hand. Not a handshake, just holding it. Two men connected by something neither could fully explain. "Thank you for letting me be water tonight, Johnny," Bruce said. "Thank you for letting me flow through." Then he turned and walked off the stage. The audience watched him go in silence. No applause, no music. Just presence. Just truth. Just a man who had finally been seen. 4 months later, on July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was gone. He was 32 years old. He had collapsed in Hong Kong, just as he feared he might. His brain had swelled again. This time, he didn't wake up. He never made his scheduled appearance on The Tonight Show in August. He never saw Enter the Dragon premiere. He never knew that it would become the most successful martial arts film in history. He never knew that his face would be remembered for generations. But Johnny Carson knew something the rest of the world didn't. The night he heard the news, Carson sat alone in his office at NBC. The studio was empty. The lights were off. And in his hands, he held a folded piece of paper. He read the words again. The same words Bruce had read to 17 million people on a Thursday night in March. "Be water, my friend." Carson kept that paper in his desk drawer for 19 years. He never showed it to anyone. When he retired in 1992, a reporter asked him about his most memorable interview. Carson paused for a long time. Then he said, "There was a man who came to see me once. He wasn't scheduled. He wasn't invited. But he had something to say. And I've never forgotten it." Bruce Lee didn't come to The Tonight Show that night to promote a movie. He came to plant a seed. And that seed grew into something that could never die. They told him America would never see an Asian hero. But that night, America saw something greater. They saw a man who refused to be invisible. A man who turned his pain into wisdom. A man who taught the world that strength isn't about force. It's about flow. He was only 32 years old. But in those 5 minutes, he lived forever. Be water, my friend. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight.